you who don't know, my name is George Hargis, and I'm the PR and social media manager for the USPA. And I'm here with Amanda Smalley, who is our director of competition. And she is going to be asking questions of Jake Carlton. He can give us a little wave. And Jason Brigmon, and they are members of XP Ascend, the artistic freestyle team. So without further ado, go ahead and take it away, Amanda.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason and Jake, for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
So how long have you been competing as a team?
We started competing back in fall of 2021. That was whenever, it was like the beginning of September.
I want to say it was like legitimately September 1st of 2021.
Yeah, about a month and a half before the 2021 Nationals.
That's great. And then did either of you compete in other disciplines before artistic freestyle?
I had done a few years in freestyle as the camera guy and then a little bit on a Freefly team. But as far as skydiving goes, and a touch of speed skydiving, accidentally. And, but yeah, that's about it.
You did some 2A VFS in the tunnel too, yeah?
Yeah, but in the tunnel, I've done a few others, but.
Yeah, the first thing I've competed in has been freestyle. I've competed a lot in a lot of other sports, but getting into skydiving, this was my first discipline in skydiving.
Oh, wow. That's great. So you guys have a good, strong background with it. And how did you guys end up becoming a team?
We were both local to Paraclete, and we flew in the tunnel together, and we also had done a lot of 2-ways in the sky, and so we got along and enjoyed flying together, and it just kind of like, oh, we should give freestyle a shot, and so it kind of started all that way. But we probably jumped together for, I don't know, maybe about a year and a half prior to becoming a team.
Yeah, I really think it was more of just like interest in 2-way jumps. You know, anytime we were at the drop zone, we were both there, we were going to make a 2-way. You know, we made a lot of those kind of jumps, and those are the best kind of skydives because you can just do so many things. You know, you start adding more people, you can't do quite as much. So we always liked the fact you do so many things in a 2-way. So we did a lot of them, and then it became kind of natural from there, considering freestyle is pretty much a 2-way sport.
Awesome. And what's the basic difference between artistic freestyle and artistic freefly?
Freestyle, there's one performer, and the connection to the camera is just nonstop, versus Freefly, there's 2 performers, and it starts to create this trifecta, you know, where now you're flying with one other individual. So that's probably the biggest obvious. And then just the way that, and we're learning this a little bit more because we started a Freefly team as well. So we're learning more in depth about the process of Freefly and introducing that next teammate.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious answer is freestyle is 2 and Freefly is 3. But as far as like total differences goes, man, I feel like it's 2 different sports. They're still very dynamic. You still do all the things, but freestyle to me, it's very fast. You know, the intensity is super high. You have so much more kind of control because it's just 2 people that are making adjustments off each other. Versus Freefly, it's all these cross references. It's a little bit bigger lines because I have to keep more in frame with 2 people in frame, and it's a whole nother level of technicality in the flying. And I mean, they're both pretty challenging, but we're definitely learning. Like Freefly can be a pretty tough discipline in its own, for sure.
Yeah, and the visuals I think are different. I think it starts to what you can do, because the performers can reference each other as well as the camera, versus freestyle, you know, if you're not referencing the camera, you're just kind of in your own world. So the Freefly, I think it also introduces another set of visuals, which a lot of people do enjoy watching, including myself. I do like the Freefly a lot.
And you said you're starting a Freefly team. Are you hoping to compete in both Freefly and freestyle at this upcoming nationals?
Yeah, we will be. Yeah. James Rogers, we started early this winter Yeah, he started skydiving last year and he's doing okay. And yeah, we all kind of matched work ethic and everything. And we're like, oh, let's give this a shot. And the more we jumped together, we enjoyed it. And we've got a lot to learn, but we're on a 2-year goal to, qualify at nationals and hopefully compete on a world level next year in both disciplines. That's the goal.
That's fantastic.
I think James legitimately, I want to say maybe a couple weeks ago, hit 1 year in the sport. So
Yeah.
it's been fun. The kid's so
Yeah.
talented flying wise, obviously with his tunnel background, but introducing the differences in the skydiving it's been fun because it gives us kind of a little bit more to think about, things we may take for granted that we do more innately because we've spent a little bit more time in the sky together, where we can really start to dive into like how we make the things happen that we make happen and the techniques that we don't realize, but we now have to explain. So it's been pretty cool.
That's fantastic. And was he just at the drop zone, or how did you get into the free fly and have a new teammate?
Well, we wanted to kind of do free fly in general because it seems like it's a little bit more of a dying discipline in the US. It's pretty big throughout the world, but the US hasn't had a big showing in free fly. So we wanted to kind of get that moving a little bit. And we actually judged US indoor nationals. And he was flying in indoor nationals in freestyle. And just from what we saw, he seemed like a good fit. So we met with him early in the year, made some jumps to see if he would work. And that's kind of where we're at now.
Awesome. And what's your favorite part about competing?
I think it's that. I think it gives you that little bit of structure. It gives you the need or the desire to push a little bit more to see what you can come up with versus maybe if you're going out and you're just, fun jumping, it's like, okay, maybe this is good enough. It's like, oh, that was fun, and then you go on to the next thing and, you're enjoying your time. But I think with the competition, you have to really dive deeper into what you're doing to understand it so that you can go out and replicate it the best that's possible, from yourself. And you can't do that doing something maybe 5, 10 times, 20 times, like our free routine. I don't know exactly how many times we flew a variation of it, but I don't know, we probably flew it 400 or 500 times last year. So then we start to see things and learn things about it, the flying that, we wouldn't have done if we'd only done it 3 or 4 times. So I think the competition forces you to kind of go down that path a little bit more so.
Yeah, for me, it's I'm big on progression. Progression is kind of my goal in everything I do. I like that's where I find fulfillment. The things that I do is continuously progressing through the sport. And in competition, it forces a level of intention in all of the jumps that you make. And I think kind of intention is a little bit of the mother of progression. So I think that kind of naturally makes me enjoy the competing more so than just a standard skydive, because it's more directed in kind of the goals that I have just in life.
That's awesome. What is the history behind the intermediate test event? We have a new event this year at Nationals that was presented, and the host accepted it. And I know that you guys were both part, along with Bryce, in writing rules to govern the intermediate test event.
I think it's always been kind of a side thing of, it's always a discussion, always a topic of just, it's difficult to compete in freestyle or free fly. It's challenging, because you got to be able to do all the things. And it's always been a topic, and it's, yeah, we need to do something. Yeah, we need to do something. It always turns out. And then this past year in Chicago Nationals, it got a little bit more serious because there were no free fly teams. And we had a meeting at the end of Nationals to, what are we going to do? Because if no one's going to show up, we're not going to continue to list the discipline. So, and then it got brought up even more so of like, well, how are we getting people there? And, in a lot of the other disciplines, formation, you have intermediate, advanced, there's stepping stones. And so whenever you get your license, your A license, you can go up and you can take grips and, you know, do those things. Like we have a class and disciplines for that, but we don't really have anything for those that don't want to do that, that don't want to turn points, you know, that actually want to go up and move and learn how to use the space in more 3D manner than just, you know, out here. Yeah. Like I'm trying to like be nice. Yeah. So it got to talking about that, and then Bryce got to work right away and started working on the rules, and then we kept having discussions, you know, how do we reach, you know, how do we make this attainable for those new jumpers for the A license? Like, well, what are you doing, you know, like you're learning to fly, you know, belly to earth, and then, you know, early in the tunnel you start to learn transitions and some of those pieces, and it's like, okay, well, how do we start to get people vertical? How do we teach them to track, you know? And so intermediate has all those things. It has, for the most part, it's belly to earth. One of the compulsory sequences is a tracking sequence. And so it's like you're literally learning how to, and then one's over under, you know, so you're starting to see the sky in a different way, and they all connect to the open class, which is cool because you can start to see what an eagle is, what a carve is, even if you're just on your belly. So hopefully people will start to see the connection and, you know, get their feet wet and then stick with it. And then from there you progress and, you know, go to open.
Yeah, I think he kind of hit the nail on the head. I think as we watched Open continue to progress, we started to see more and more difficult compulsories start to show up that made it very difficult to be able to enter the sport as a whole. We now have side fly compulsories. You know, some of the ankle sequences are far more technical than they've ever been. And it makes the cost of admission skills-wise so much higher to fly in our event. And we were starting to see a little bit of the consequences of that in the amount of teams that we're starting to see in the US. So it was an obvious issue. And one of the things that Jason and I always had conversations about is like, if we want to change something, we got to do it. Nobody else is going to do it. Like, you got to take the reins and you got to actually like start to move the ball so that more people start to move the ball with you. And then it starts to progress from there. And I think Bryce picked it up really, really quickly. He's been fantastic through all this, as well as some of the other judges are really starting to kind of like fall in on this, and it's been really cool. And Jason really is kind of taking the reins on it more than anything. He would come to me, we'd brainstorm some thoughts, and then he'd write it all up, send it out. They talk about it, they send back a revision, and it's been cool to see kind of what we've been able to do in a pretty short period of time. And we're pretty excited to see it actually like in practice in the sky come nationals.
And I know you guys did a great job with the rules and stuff, and they are available on the USPA website. Under AE test, intermediate test event. So if anyone does want to look at that after this, it's on USPA's website at the skim section, and it has the rules are up front, not incorporated in the skim. It's a separate document as well. And then I know that Bryce or Jason, you have done some stuff to push for the test event. You recently wrote an article that should be coming out, I believe, as well.
Yeah, I believe it's supposed to be published in the July edition of Parachutist. So yep, that's coming. We've also Jake and James, both, all three of us, we've also put together videos of the compulsory sequences on the XPSN website. So if you want to go see the visuals, we have them for intermediate, we have them for open. So all the rules are there. Pretty much most any question that you might have, a lot of it could be answered on the website. So
that's great. Sounds like you're very thorough, and it makes it easy for others to get involved in it. So that's wonderful. What are some basic body positions that someone should be comfortable doing if they decide to compete in freestyle as a performer?
Well, I mean, with the new intermediate, we touched on pretty much if you're stable, which to get your A license, you know, you can start there. And most of the compulsories, I want to say there's 6 compulsories for freestyle and intermediate, and 4 of them are just the belly position. So if you're stable, you know, and you're not doing a tandem, you pretty much can get started with the intermediate. As you start to go to open, obviously you're going to need to know how to move on your back, You need to learn how to carve. You need to learn how to fly head up, head down, vertical in static positions. So it does become definitely more challenging as you go to the open class. But there's also within the compulsories, there's point versions as well. So there's the 10-point version, which is the most difficult version of that compulsory sequence itself. But there's also a 7.5-point version and a 5-point version. So, and they get with a little bit less requirements each one. So even though once you step up to open, there are slightly easier versions of those compulsory moves. So you don't have to go for all 10s. But at the end of the day, it is challenging in open.
Yeah.
And how about positions for a videographer?
I think the only real difference between video and performer as far as body positions go, things you have to be able to fly, is there's a compulsory where the performer is in fact side flying, whether it be the lowest point version where it's a little bit simpler version of a side fly, or the 10-point version, which is a full static side fly that's rotating 360 degrees and then stopping. That one is very specific to the performer. The rest of them they cross over fairly well. As far as like head up, head down, you need to be able to be static, you need to be able to move, you need to be able to move move head up, you need to be able to be static head up, you need to be able to move head down, you need to be able to be static head down. So that carries over fairly commonly between the two, but it is unique as performer and freestyle to fly on the side.
That's good advice. And what's the difference between, this is a question I had actually as well. What's the difference between a free routine and a compulsory routine? When I was looking through the skim, just to clarify that for people.
So the free routine is completely up to you. It's a routine that you make up. You can make it whatever you want it to be. The cool thing about the artistic events is there's no limits in what you can do in a free routine as far as your own creativity goes. However, the compulsories are specific moves you have to fly. In open, there's 4 compulsories and 2 compulsory rounds. So 4 separate moves you have to fly in each round that must be flown throughout that. And then those are scored based off a specific set of guidelines per move, versus the free routine is more of your own artistic interpretation of what you want to fly. And then you're scored on difficulty of what your routine is, and then the execution of that difficulty.
The compulsory sequences themselves, they're predetermined. So it's not like there's a draw. So we already know what the compulsory sequences are. They only change them, if they even do change, are usually on World Cup years. So we already know what the compulsory sequences are. All the rules are laid out. So you build your routine based off those 4 that you already know what they are. So you put them together in the order that you want, that you feel they connect the best. And so it's not like it's a surprise. You can be training those compulsories and just making lots of reps. And that's the great thing about the compulsories, is you already know what they are. So you can go up and be working on those and building that routine. You just get a lot of reps. So you can definitely get good at those. And both camera and performer have criteria. So there's a job for each person. So it gives you that structure, which is nice. We probably can rope that right into whenever you get started, start with compulsories, because you learn how to fly together. Sometimes with the free routine, it can be a lot and you can chase the creativity forever and never really be happy. So learn how to fly together by flying the compulsories. It gives you that structure that most teams need. That's where we all started.
More often than not, too, the free routines are kind of built off of some sort of like subset of compulsories as it is. It may not be the exact move, but you have eagles, angles, and carves, and some side flying. That's generally what is in a free routine. And it's also generally, those are your compulsories as well.
Awesome. Can a team have more than one free routine?
They can, but they shouldn't.
Yes.
It's one of those ones. If you can only train 100 training jumps and you introduce another routine, now you just start to divide how many jumps you actually make for that free routine. So you just you're taking away for you polishing your free routine that you need. You're not gonna pick up any bonus points for doing an extra one. So
Yeah, you just make your life more difficult that way for sure.
yep, it's too much.
What's the exit altitude during a competition?
13,000.
Okay, so they get full altitude for that.
Yeah. And it's 45 seconds for freestyle and 43 seconds for free fly. That's a rule they changed a couple years ago. They went back and forth somewhat. I don't have a great, I'm not crazy about the 43. It should be 45, but so many teams, they just stayed so vertical that they found they were running out of time. So they changed the time on that one. So, but 45 freestyle, 43 free fly.
And when does the time start and when does it end?
First person to leave the aircraft. And that's the judges make that decision, and the software, whenever they're judging it, will stop the video whenever it reaches the 45 seconds or 43 seconds. And then, so nothing gets judged past that point. So you may have the coolest move ever at 46 and 47 seconds, but no one knows.
Yeah, one of the challenges for sure of kind of putting some of these routines together is it's not like any of the formation stuff where you get out and you get as many points as you can inside of that amount of time frame. We're specifically looking to fly an entire routine inside of that working time at the exact amount of time, so that when that time hits, there's no longer anybody in frame and the routine is finished. But you don't want to finish too early because then you have some points taken away for finishing too early. So there's some unique challenges involving that, but that I think is kind of what makes it fun. It gives you kind of a little bit of license to be more creative and figure out how to make those things work more precisely.
Makes sense. And then how many rounds are there in competition?
There are 7 rounds. So round 1 is a free routine. Round 2 is the first compulsory round. And then 3 and 4, you do your free routine again. And then round 5 is the second compulsory round. And then 6, 7 is free routine again.
Okay.
So, yeah. So you do your, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Is that the same for the intermediate as well, or is that for open?
Yep. Yeah, that's the same.
Okay. And how are the compulsory round sequences judged?
So you get scored on each sequence. So there'll be, whenever you get your score at the end, there's the first compulsory you did, the second, the third, and the fourth, and you get judged on each one, which works out to be 22.5% of your score. Not to get tied up in the numbers or anything, but that's kind of, it's like almost a quarter of your score for each one. There's also a 10% of presentation. So whatever little extra fluff that you add, so whatever cool exit or cool ending that you do contributes to that 10%. But for the most part, like each move itself is judged. And there's criteria, whether, you know, based off heading, if you're on level, you know, if you're kind of wobbling, or they reference layout position a lot, which is a straighter body position. So if you're not in that layout position and it calls for it, then maybe there's a 10% reduction for that one. But it's all stated in the rules, so you know what the judges are looking for.
Awesome. And then how about the free routine? How is that one judged?
It's judged off several different, it's judged off the technicality of it. So how difficult the moves you're doing, and the variations of everything. So trying to make sure you check boxes in head up, head down, all those. They're looking, if you go out and you just stay head down the whole time, maybe your difficulty might not be as much. So making sure you have a variation of those things. how well it's all put together. So if the routine looks somewhat robotic, if there's breaks in between your moves, does the routine flow? Are there new moves, things that we haven't seen before? The judges are looking for all that. If you're flying the same routine you've done for the last 4 years, like, is it really that, should your difficulty be the same that it was a year, 2 years ago? Probably not. So they're looking at a lot of those pieces. And then whenever you're in competition, you submit your free routine prior to competing. So the judges know what you're trying to do. You have a drama sheet that you write out your moves. So they're well aware of what you're supposed to do. And then whenever you don't execute on that, there's the execution part to it that it's like, oh, well, they didn't even do the last 5 seconds of their routine, which you get docked for that. So, and it breaks down a lot of what the deductions would be in the rules. Jake, I don't know. I'm sure there's several things to add to that.
So he's hit on all the technical pieces, and then once you have an initial technical score, you're also scored at that point on presentation, execution, and the camera. And those are all additional things that are brought into account when they put the score together, with that technicality being scored in as well. So you have technicality, execution, presentation, and camera. Those are your 4 ways that they judge the free routine.
Yeah, they're definitely a big part of it is definitely how you're like flying with the camera. It's that's definitely becoming a way bigger piece. I would say, 10 years ago, we definitely didn't see the level of engaging with the camera that we're seeing these days. It was more of not always, but more so you're in your own world, doing your tricks and doing your pieces, but versus now it's very much a 2-way. There's a constant reference, constant connection between the two, and they're looking for that. So if you go up and you're just doing trick after trick, it's like, but then the camera, it's like, do they even really know where the camera's at? There starts to be deductions in that area. So the camera is a massive part of it, and it's, that's the product. So once you land, that's what you're getting judged off of. So if you're disappearing occasionally out of the frame, then not good. But so camera is definitely one of the most important pieces, if not the most.
How about you guys? Which one's your favorite, compulsory or free round?
Free round.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I'll be honest, let's say somewhere in the time frame of like March to early June, generally, we love the compulsories and hate the free routine, because that is a painful thing. Putting together a free routine, it's challenging. It's really challenging. I'm not sure that Jason and I either consider ourselves creative in any way, shape, or form. So like that doesn't come naturally to us. So it comes from a lot of skydives, flying 2 ways, seeing certain visuals. Oh, I like that. Let's try to recreate it. Okay, we absolutely cannot recreate that at all. Let's go down another path, and then over and over. So it becomes this absolutely like hated thing. But when it comes together, man, is it fun to fly. And the amount that you can dive into the technicality and create these cool visuals because you're in the exact right place at the exact right time at the exact right speed, all of these things are just like, once it's there, it's awesome. Building it, depression.
Yeah, it's very, very true. Whenever I said the free routine, I was like, yeah, but then I just thought about it, and I was like, 2 months ago, that's not what I said. Yeah. So, but we like the free routine right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Good to know. It's seasonal change. Yeah. And then I think we already talked, let's see, what type of camera do you use for competition?
A GoPro. I always buy the newest GoPro going into the world competition, if it comes out before the world competition, because in my head, that's the most reliable. It's kind of like the way I see GoPro. I don't know if it's true or not, but the way I see it is kind of like the iPhone. It's like, if you don't have the 14, your model is getting steadily worse because they want you to buy the 14 or whatever model we're on now. So if I have a Hero 9 and they're putting out updates that the Hero 9's getting that's supposed to be going for the 11, all of a sudden my 9 starts like performing really poorly. That's not what I'm looking for in a competition round. So generally speaking, I try to buy whatever the newest GoPro is, and that's what I'll run throughout that year from whenever I can fly at the first competition until, you know, the next year they put a new one out. Most of the time I have one camera whenever we're training, and sometimes the nationals I'll fly one. At the world competitions, often I'll fly two just to have that safety net, but I'm really trying to get away from that. I hate flying two cameras.
How do you position them?
So for me, I have a Tonefly 2X. It's a really modular helmet, but it's not a very big bulky helmet. So what makes the most sense for me with the GoPros is to stack them kind of more one on top of the other. Ideally, because that kind of loads a little bit of the front of the helmet, and we're flying so hard, it's so dynamic, there's so much happening, and the head is an integral part of how you make a lot of these orientations make sense and speed changes and stuff like that. I don't like having a little bit off center of gravity on my head. So when I fly a single one, I fly it directly on the top of my head, almost as if it's like a fin that cuts through the wind. It makes a lot more sense to me. But the ones that are on the front, it does a nice job of framing everything, and it doesn't change anything with my ring sight, but it creates a slight center of gravity issue that I don't like as much. So I'm kind of trying to go to specifically one camera, but it's got to be reliable to be able to play that game.
That makes sense. Other than the tunnel and skydiving together, is there a way to train your body physically and mentally?
Stretch, be active. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, watch your videos. Like, there's so many things. Just like stay in it. You know, like we really don't take too much of a break from anything. So it's all the thoughts kind of revolve around it. So in some sort of way, we're thinking about how does this play forward to what we're trying to do. So, I mean, depending on whatever, you know, you feel like you have a lack of strength in some way, core is, you know, from a physical standpoint, core is a big piece in flying. That's, but yeah, I don't know, Jake, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's seasonal. So wintertime, I'm heavy in the gym and I'm heavy in the tunnel. Jason is also very heavy in the tunnel, and he's generally pretty heavy in the gym as well. Once the summer rolls around and we're pushing so hard in the sky, and we're pretty much in the sky every day, unless we're like we are this week where the weather's just been absolutely horrendous. Then we put a lot more emphasis on the jumps because there's less wear and tear on the body if we don't spend time in the gym and on the jumps, so we can continue to train at a high level. But for me, because I'm a little bit bigger guy than Jason is, my big thing going into the winter time for what I do is I try to keep my weight as low as possible, and then try to maintain that throughout the summer time frame, and then kind of more vice versa with Jason. He's always trying to like be a little bit stronger whenever he's in the gym, stuff like that. So it's always just kind of based on what your goals are and what your needs are. But I do feel like physical fitness is a crucial piece to the kind of flying that we do. I don't know that you can really get away with being unathletic and fly at the higher levels necessary. I think you need to train like an athlete.
Great advice. I like that. Does your team offer coaching and virtual coaching?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely do a lot in the sky. We do a lot of just movement stuff in general. We do even non-competition stuff. We do a lot of angles. So we flying in that sense, but we also do a lot of the team stuff. So we train newer teams. Both of us will do stuff in the tunnel, quite a bit of coaching in the tunnel. So year round, I mean, we're very fortunate that our tunnel is 10 minutes away from our drop zone. So we're definitely in the tunnel a lot. XP is great to us. So we do coach a lot throughout the year, online coaching as well. There's currently even coaching some international teams. So just Yeah, that's the great thing about the internet, you know, and it's surprisingly how much you can see from a video. I know it's like, oh, you need to kind of be there, but really it's not so much of us, like from competition and a team standpoint, it's not the in-person is good, but just watching the video alone, there's a lot to be said on what's going on with the jump. Just watching the video, you can see a lot, even what the camera's doing, what the performers are doing. So you can tell a lot by the video.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty big on kind of pushing the sport forward in any way we can. So we spend a lot of time working with all teams that are trying to get started. One thing for sure about this sport is it is really challenging to get started. You can be the best flyer on the planet with the second best flyer on the planet together as a team. Getting started, it's hard to know where step one is. And more often than not, you put two amazing flyers in the sky and they look like they're in two different time zones. And a lot of that is because there's a lot of sports specific technique to understanding how to make these two ways work in the way that they do in our discipline. And we do everything we can to try to help new teams with that, because that's the most challenging part. And it's incredibly discouraging to be a good flyer with another good flyer and not be able to make a skydive look even remotely good when you're just out there trying to figure it out. So we do everything we can on that front. We do a lot, obviously, like you said, on the civilian side, or I guess the sports side. But as far as the team stuff goes, that's really where we like to, we try to help out as absolutely much as we possibly can.
So if someone wants to get into it and they wanted to get coaching, how do they contact you for the coaching, whether it's submitting the videos and you can speak to them about that, or coming to XP, or you potentially traveling? How do they contact you for that?
You can reach out to us on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, whether it's a team account or a personal. You can also go to xpsn.com and there's a way to contact us there. There's obviously a lot of information there, but there's also a way to get in contact with us. So there's a lot of ways. If you see us out in person, grab us. We're somewhat approachable. No, I'm just playing. We're very approachable. So any point, I mean, come up, talk to us. We're more than happy to chat about it. We enjoy it. So yeah, whatever means there are, and we're more than happy to share. I don't know, at the end we can probably share some of the contacts, but yeah, just Jason Brigmon on Facebook and Messenger. You could shoot us a message.
Yeah, social media is pretty easy. But on the website, if you wanted to go through that platform, you can click on the coaching tab and it'll give you a bunch of options, whether it want to be for, team coaching, one-on-one coaching, tunnel coaching, two-way coaching. Like, we have a bunch of options you can click on and then send exactly what you want, and we can get with you that way as well.
Perfect. And I know that you guys are on the US team heading to the World Cup this year. So how did you make it on the US parachute team?
You want to get that one, Jason?
So we made it on the US parachute team by qualifying at nationals, and that started in 2021 whenever we competed in Arizona, and we had won nationals. For those interested in the future, wanting to be on the US team, artistic is unique in the sense that on years that's qualifying for a world championship, they take the top two teams in freestyle and Freefly. And on the years that's qualifying for a World Cup, they take the top four teams. So that's a lot of times that's a nice little goal to set for, whenever you're trying to go. Like this year, we're going to Norway, and there's like last year at nationals, the top four teams get to go to Norway, get the opportunity to go to Norway. So, yep, by finishing in those top spots, that puts you on the team.
Perfect. And then tell us your experience at a world competition versus a national competition. I know that Jake already mentioned the difference. He flies one camera versus the two cameras, and what are other experiences?
Yeah, I think I would say it varies. Like our first nationals was different than this past nationals. We had going into our first nationals, we'd only been trained. We did a lot of jumps for that amount of time, but we still didn't have a polished product, and it wasn't to what we wanted, but at the same time, so we were a little more serious, and we were maybe a little overwhelmed, like we were probably me more so than Jake. I think Jake handled the competition first year a little bit better than I did. But so we were probably a little more serious that first year. And then this past year, we had some newer teams at nationals, and, we tried to help as much as we could and just be involved with that. So from a national standpoint, I would say it was a little bit too. We've only been to 2 together. So, and then we've been to one world competition together. That one it was definitely a different level of seriousness, because that was one of our first steps in what we're trying to achieve, that world level. So we were very focused and serious. We trained a lot the month prior, we did a lot of jumps. So that one I don't even know if I could quite put it into words, but it was a good experience.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't really have much difference between national and world competition. To me, competition is competition, and we're there to win no matter what the stage is. And our first nationals and our first worlds were at the same drop zone, so the experience didn't vary terribly much. When we showed up, it looked exactly the same between nationals and worlds. It's not a drastic change. I think a lot of difference between a national competition and a world competition could be venue. And we've not had that opportunity as a team. I know Jason has had some great experiences with the past team in places like Australia and stuff like that, which I think might be a little bit different experience than what he's had in some nationals. But as a whole, the difference between Jump One Worlds and Jump One Nationals is the same to me. I approach it the same way every single time, and that's just to fly the absolute best round we can and use that to demoralize all other teams after round one.
I would say the experience, what made the experience difference between all of them was the level of preparedness that we were there with. So like Jake said, as far as us trying, and the effort was definitely, it's always there, but what you feel that you prep for, right, where the confidence, and that's where your confidence is going to come from anyways, is just how well that you prepped. I would say that's what created a different experience for myself, because nationals, first one, didn't feel as prepped. Nationals 2 felt more prepped. Worlds, definitely prepped. So it created a different experience because of the level of that we had prepared. So
yeah, that's very true. I say it somewhat jokingly, but yes, as far as the amount of confidence going in, I think the most recent World Championship was the most prepared we've ever been, and that was pretty cool to show up like that. Nobody ever showed up to the tests unprepared, and it was cool showing up knowing all the answers.
Awesome. That's all the questions I had, so I think we're going to move to the chat. I don't know if George is still there.
I am. I'm still here, just kind of quietly listening in the background. We did have some questions. First of all, I have been putting the links in the chat for some of the things the guys have referenced. So, and I know Bryce also did. So uspa.org/SCM for the rules. But Jason and Jake have put an incredible amount of work into putting the visuals, like they said, for the intermediate category, and they have videos that you guys can watch on their website, xpsn.com, and I put that link in the chat as well. Jim Reese is here. For those of you who don't know, Jim Reese is a multi-rated judge. He's waving, and he's also our ISC president. Is that right, Jim?
Vice President.
Vice President. Okay, yeah. So
the Bureau VP, yes.
Oh, yes. So he's been in the competition world for quite a while. And Jim, I don't know if you were able to clarify in the time that since you wrote this, but the compulsories per round in the intermediate, is that 3 sequences, or Jake's nodding, Jason's nodding? Okay, so 3 compulsory sequence per round in the intermediate category.
So you only have to learn 6 total
Okay,
to jump in the competition. Yeah.
just 6. Okay, well.
Yeah, I think that's another cool thing about intermediate is only having 3. That I believe that a lot of drop zones that are just Cessna drop zones, you don't get quite the same amount of altitude. So, but I still think 3 compulsories is what they are, is very attainable. So I think that's another perk of only the 3. So even if you are at a Cessna drop zone, you're not quite getting the same altitude. It's still possible.
Okay. And then Lauren had asked, and Jim kind of answered her, but I'm going to give you guys an opportunity as well. Lauren said, what are the expectations for the belly angle sequence around not changing the orientation of the camera? Is head up movement the answer? Are we not dinged for switching to portrait from landscape? Jim responded back, this came up a lot in the AE judge course, and the rule currently requires a ding for non-upright video, and is questioning on whether we need to adjust that. Do you guys have comment on that?
So on the camera side, I think, in my opinion, the answer at that level is the performer should just be on horizon for reference in relation to angle itself. Outside of that, the actual orientation of the camera, I don't know, is super relevant for what we're trying to accomplish skill level wise on the angle sequence. But I do think they should be on horizon so that we can actually reference the angle that the performer is flying at.
That was never, yeah, we didn't have any issue with that, but like every single cameraman basically turned at least 90 degrees. And all we had was a rule that said it had to be upright. Otherwise, I think it's a 30% deduction. But it'd be straightforward to make an adjustment now while we can before nationals to say for that one compulsory, you could upright video is not a requirement. Does that make sense?
I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Is that possible to do, Jim, before nationals?
It's a test event. We can,
Yeah.
we could do it the day before if we had to, but
Yeah, I'm sure, and we appreciate any feedback from the individuals that are out flying them, because as we said, like we did quite a bit in a short amount of time. So I know that as far as we don't have a polished product yet, but the goal wasn't to have it perfect. So any feedback that we can make it better and make those changes for the following year, like we have a successful year this year, and then it's a full-on normal event next year, that's the goal more so, and then we can make those adjustments as we go. So whether we make the changes or not this year, I mean, we'll keep trying to make whatever changes necessary, but just keep giving feedback. That's just so we can have a better, I mean, and the rules, the compulsories, all those pieces, they all come from the competitors. The judges aren't making these rules up. So all these compulsory,
we haven't heard from, right? Because we want to blow up participation, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we want to look for what's going to take to attract the most new competitors to the discipline.
And so most of the time, it's like, oh, this hasn't changed in forever. It's like, well, it's up to us on what gets changed. So voice your opinion. We have these discussions, the ones after competition, there's always a competitors meeting, like that's opportunity to make the adjustments, make the discipline better in whatever way that needs to be, new compulsories, adjusted rules, so we can grow the sport and, everyone has a good experience whenever they compete.
As far as the angle specifically goes, as the angle sequence specifically for the camera, I do think it does make sense to see the camera actually flip in that instance with the belly sequences that are in the round as well. I did come from back when we had the old angle sequence, and there was a specific orientation in open that you had to present the horizon on, and it created a poor technique for angle flying for the camera, and I was never a fan of that. I think we should always promote good flying techniques, and we should never make a camera angle force a flyer to fly with a poor technique. So I do think whether they're flying back or belly in the angle sequence, you should see the screen flip because they are flying other belly sequences on their belly. So it'll most likely flip for the camera flyer.
Okay, I may contact you to get more.
Yeah, I can talk a
more
little
on
bit.
that
Just
idea.
as far as what is good head position goes for the camera flyer, the screen will most likely flip.
Awesome, good stuff. I have a question of my own. Just kind of from watching older freestyle videos, I feel like pointing toes was kind of like a thing. Is that still a thing? Like, are you supposed to be pointing your toes?
Oh,
Would
we
love
did.
to talk about this.
Oh,
So
we did.
yeah, it's been like one of my goals since I started was to get rid of it. And we were successful beginning of this year to where all pointing toes has been removed. So
Gone.
that,
Okay.
yep, it almost got by again, but I followed up with everyone. I was like, is this gone? And they were like, oh, we forgot. And I'm like, no, we didn't. It is gone. So the days of that are gone. That's not when it comes to technique, it's like no one should be looking at my toes whenever I look at it. So like obviously there's certain moves to straddle, and there's certain moves that maybe from a visual standpoint it does make sense, but from an overall standpoint where you must do this on all the time, like that's gone. So the sport is it's changing. It come from more so the dance, more of that kind of style, and that's still, most people still think freestyle. I won't say most, but there's still a lot of individuals think that freestyle is more of a dance in the sky, but it's not. It's very dynamic, and I think the tunnel has played a big shift in how we're utilizing the sky in general, where we're flying this vertical pieces, these vertical orbits we call eagles. Then the horizontal ones we call carving. So for those that may not know, but so yeah, it's like we're learning how to do all those things, and so all the routines are starting to be more so that way, not so much on but the great thing about freestyle, you're for your team, you can make it whatever you want. So if you do enjoy those things, it's still fine. So
yeah, there's no detraction from pointing your toes. If you want to do it because that's the style you want, that's fantastic. There's just no longer a deduction for not pointing your toe. So now you can fly the style you would like, no matter what.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I always kind of question that because like I have a dance background, and so in dance you point your toes, but like it never made sense to me for skydiving, especially some of the moves you're doing. It's like it doesn't benefit it doesn't make the move really look any better. Sometimes it also makes it look kind of weird and funky to point your toes. So I'm glad you guys. It's just another example of like the competitors saying like this is not something that we want, and then being heard. So
yeah, all the competitors, I mean, everyone the past couple of years have been like, why are we doing this? And yeah, sometimes it just takes, you just gotta push something maybe a little more. So
awesome. Amanda, did you have any more questions for the guys? Or
no, they answered a ton of them. It was very informative, so it was fantastic. I appreciate it.
yeah. Oh, and you guys did mention the article that's coming out in the July issue. We actually pre-published it on parachutist.com, so it is available now. And I did put a link up to that on the USPA Facebook page today. But there's going to be an email that goes out to everyone who participated in this webinar, and it's going to have links to that, links to the team's website. So hopefully all of the resources that we've kind of gathered from this will be put out to everybody who's interested. So, all right. And I mean, I appreciate you guys taking your time, not only tonight, but also just getting this intermediate event possible. I know Bryce is also here. I don't know if he's on screen or not, but Bryce was a huge component of that as well. So
Yep.
thank you for that and making the discipline grow a little bit more. I think we're going to see hopefully a big showing.
Yeah, at least so.
Yeah. And good luck in Norway.
Thank you.
And we'll all be watching. That's mid-August, right?
Actually, they're towards the end of August, the actual
End of
competition. I think it starts the 23rd.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to stay tuned, but Christy West just messaged, did anyone mention practicing for nationals at pre-nationals at Spaceland? So Spaceland, is it Houston, Christy, or Dallas? Or maybe they're all doing it. I can't remember which location.
I think Houston.
Houston. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Christy said anywhere, any Spaceland location. So if you guys are interested in doing some practice, you can show up for the pre-nationals. And I'm assuming Spaceland website probably has, oh, and she's saying remote allowed. So it's like cloud games. So if you want to participate, you can do a remote competition through Spaceland. All right, that's about all we have time for today. But look for your email probably later this week, and then we'll send out all of the resources to everybody, okay?
Yeah, and I'll just, before we do get off, I just want to say, you know, obviously we've been doing a few things, but there's a lot of people that help us. So between Paraclete XP, you know, UPT is great to us, Performance Designs, Tonefly, SSK, LMB. So like we have a lot of people that are helping us in general. And so along those lines, like we're thankful for all those people, and we also want to help everyone. So always feel free to reach out to us in whatever way that you see fit. Like we want to help and grow the sport. So I just kind of wanted to reiterate that again. So a lot of people have played up big roles in getting us to where we are, and we want to continue to kind of keep that same trend and continue to help people that are getting into it. So we want to see more freestyle, free fly, and less scripts.
Awesome.
Yeah,
and thank you, Jim, too, for showing up and kind of chiming in and giving us some helpful information. Appreciate it. All right, everyone, have a good night. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the next webinar, hopefully next month. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.